Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member. Thank you, sir, for being here. I know you've already answered this, but if you could just break it down a little further, how does the instability of the budget process affect the DOD? You know, we've done 14 continued resolutions.
So I think one of the things to look at is, and here's maybe a way to understand it. When I have meetings, we had 1 year where we had the appropriation on time, and I had a meeting and people said, you don't need to tell us what to do under CR. You have to tell us what to do if it actually happens on time, because so few of them had exposure to it. In fact, I looked over my workforce, and a number of them have never really got the exposure to what a normal process looks like that you and I and others who've been in this business used to take for granted. The challenge then becomes the system builds that delay into its process. And think about it. We bring on 270,000 or so new people each year to the Department of Defense who require training. This disruption on when the training is going to occur, on the funding levels, those all create effects throughout the organization. And you want to make sure that the department is keeping pace with the challenges. So when there's an increase in production for a system, we don't want it to wait 3, 4, 5 months. And so those types of disruptions to our planning are bad. Those are disruptions to the depots and the workforces out there is disruptive. And again, also, it just consumes time and energy of people focusing on the incremental contracting when we could have more efficiently contracted in one single step for the entire year.
I'm wondering how that would affect my folks back home, our reservists at McGee Tyson, the air fueling wing that they have there.
Well, one of the things that I think happens to the Guard and Reserve that's particularly destructive is we often don't get a CR for the whole time. We get it for a few months, and then another month, and then another week. Well, on those Saturdays is a Guard mobilization training. And it's Friday afternoon, and we have to tell the Guard, do you show up on Saturday or not? We don't know if there's going to be a shutdown. Well, for those who drive any length of distance, they're driving while the government's not knowing whether it's going to be open, may drive several hours to their training, and then be told to turn around and drive back home. So the multiple CRs in a given year has a really disruptive effect on the Guard and the Reserve when they're trying to show up for mobilization dates.
Okay. How could we, as Congress, be more helpful in ensuring that the department is successful in their financial transparency?
So I think with regard to the funding, the CRs getting to regular appropriations on time, with regard to transparency in the audit, there's a couple of things that really make a difference. First of all, has been the vocal support of the Congress for the audit. I came back to the Department of Defense in part because the President had committed to audit the Pentagon for the first time, and I wanted to be part of that. We wouldn't have been there without you and other members of this committee who have emphasized the importance of that. The second thing is there are investments in the budget, and they're not in the dramatic areas, they're in business systems. To get rid of older business systems, replace them with modern compliant ones. Often those don't fare as well in a budget process because they're not dramatic or interesting, but they are important to the efficient operations of the budget. So those sort of factors matter as well. Any of those areas is a big step forward, and again, as always, timely and robust funding is helpful.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Now